absolute legend of the synthesizer industry, Dave Rossum, the founder of EMU Systems, the inventor of the EMU Modular, the inventor of the emulator, the inventor of the Proteus, the inventor of so many things that I have used in my career, it makes my head spin. And now, Dave has started up a new company, Rossum Electro-Music, and we're going to check out what it is that you guys are making.
So yeah, we got into the Eurorack market because it was really a fun marketplace. My Vice President of Marketing from EMU, Marco Alpert, and I, and we've been joined by Bob Bliss, who's a programmer, so the three of us are the partners in Rossum Electro. And we've been building modules for Eurorack for a bit over a year now, working on them for a couple of years. And we have 5 modules now introduced or about to go into production. Let me tell you about them a little bit.
Please, I can hardly wait to see.
So our first module we called Evolution. It is a ladder filter. It's actually based on the EMU Modular 2100 4-pole ladder filter. Uses the same original circuitry that had, but updated for today and with some new features added. It's a ladder filter, so of course it's got a variable cutoff, and because it's a ladder, it has a certain number of poles, but we've added the genus control, and this allows you to continuously switch between 3-pole, 4-pole,
nice.
5-pole, and 6-pole modes. The sound of that is really fascinating because a ladder filter inherently has to have an integer number of poles, 3, 4, 5, or 6, yet this is a continuous voltage control. So it kind of jumps in this nicely quantized way. It's all continuous, sonically pleasing, but rather than a snap between one to the next. But what it does with the sound in the meantime is really interesting. The other fun thing about changing the number of poles, in a ladder filter, you create the resonance of the filter, the Q control over here, by feedback all the way around the core, and the phase shift of the different poles creates the resonance. A different number of poles means a different resonant frequency. So the resonant frequency pops around in this sort of quantized way.
Wow.
With this control as well. It's a very beautiful sound, one that is not available in any other module in the market.
Dave, is it an analog or is it
purely analog?
It's
purely analog.
It's a purely analog circuit.
Yes, yeah. Well, my true love is analog design,
of course,
and so this had to be the first thing I was going to do. The species control is a pair of VCAs around the filter core. So as you turn it down, you're driving the ladder filter with a very low level signal. So you're purely in its linear region. It's very low distortion. And as you come out, we have a complementary VCA that boosts us back up to full level. Still stays very good signal to noise even at that level of the control. As you crank it up, we begin to drive the filter harder and harder, getting more of that fat ladder filter distortion into it. You get about halfway to the control, we're really overdriving the filter. Now you're really distorting in that core. That complementary VCA is keeping your output level at the same. So you can modulate this over a wide range in real time as well and get really nice, subtle to very gross distortion effects coming out of the Evolution.
I hardly wait to buy one.
Oh,
you've got your first sale
yes,
already.
Yeah, I've gotten wonderful compliments from people who I very much respect their ears on the sound of the Evolution filter. Our next module over here is called Control Forge. Control Forge, as it says, is a universal control voltage generator. The idea, you can see the lights down here. Let me pull up something. The idea of the Control Forge is it's got 8 segments lit up by these lights down here. Each segment can have a transition shape, which can go linear, exponential, circular, zigzags, get into noise-like and chaotic, all the way to switching through control voltages, so you can make a segment come from some other module if you want to do that. That's programmable for each one of these things. So you've got the shape, you can determine how long that segment lasts, up to 1,000 seconds, down to a 10,000th of a second. You can determine what voltage it's going to go to, and whether that is relative or absolute to another one, and whether it has some random component associated with it as well. We can then determine at the end of that segment, where are you going to go to? Are you going to jump always? Are you going to jump never? Who knows? Conditions of logic, conditions of control voltages, things like that. And then where are you going to jump to? Stopped, other presets, all kinds of things. And then we have a couple of trigger outputs from here. Basically, the whole idea, I don't have enough time to get really into the depth of it, but you can get an arbitrary length, and because you can chain these things together, you aren't limited to 8 segments. You can go 16, 32, 1,000 if you want, of these variable shape, variable time, and variable destination, and then use control voltages to modify those timbres all around it. It's a lot of fun.
It's wonderful. This is, in my opinion, the perfect use for digital. So we use analog for great sound, and then we use a digital system like this to be able to create complexity that you never could even dream of doing in an analog system.
Exactly. Now, one of the disadvantages of the Control Forge is that it only it's generating a single output. You get both plus and minus. I should also mention the thing is incredibly accurate. It's accurate down to a millivolt, so you can do pitch perfect kind of stuff with this. That's one of the things that I do in Rossum Electro. Everything is designed so that it can be accurate down to 1 or 2 cents of pitch and things like that. It costs a little more, but you can do everything else you can, but you can make really pitch accurate music if you want to as well. But we've only got the one output here, so the satellite module over here does everything the Control Forge does, but without the programming interface. So all you do is take a patch cord from the trigger to output of a programmed control voltage into the logic input over here, press some buttons, see it says receive from module, and I could transmit everything in this guy's memory over here.
Wow.
Now I've got a second and a third source of all of these different contours.
Incredible. So the satellite is not a standalone module, but it's an expansion for the Control Forge that allows you at a lower price point to be able to have all of the complexity of the Control Forge without the expense of all of the user interface.
Right, not the expense and not the front panel space as well.
Right, right.
Now there are a few people that have bought satellites because one of the other things about the Control Forge is you can dump the contents out to an audio file. So there are audio files from some people out on the web. If you want to just use those, you can load them into your satellite, then you don't need a Control Forge. But I don't recommend that. But,
no.
But certainly, people are doing it.
It's wonderful, and I have to compliment you on the OLEDs. They're absolutely beautiful in your user interface design, particularly for the Control Forge one. That makes it so easy to be able to see what you're doing at a distance, and those of us with aging eyes as well. So thank you for that.
Well, Bob, our programmer, is the guy who's the master of that kind of thing, and he's done just a great job. We'll see it in a couple other modules over here.
Alrighty.
The next one I want to show you is Morpheus. You may remember
of course, this was an EMU module.
Right, so back in the 90s we came out with the Morpheus module. It was kind of a sleeper, but the people who got into it love it. There are many of them in service still today. There's never been anything like it. The magic of the Morpheus was what we call the Z-plane filter. It's a 14th order filter. That means it can have 7 resonances and 7 notches in its frequency response. And each of those can be controlled as to frequency and the height or depth, height of the peak, depth of the notch. If we controlled that with just plain old ordinary control voltage, we'd have 28 control voltage inputs. That's not going to happen, right?
No.
So what we came up with in the original Morpheus module back in '95 was this idea of the cube model. You can see the little picture of the cube here. And so if I come down and grab a cube over here, the idea is that at each vertex of the cube, you can see in the video the little fly flying around inside its box there. At each vertex of the cube, we have a different frequency response.
Wow.
And so as you move around in 3 dimensions, you get to one of these 8 vertices. And then the magic of the Morpheus technology is that it sweeps between those in a sonically sensible space. Again, that's something nobody else has ever accomplished. So we decided to turn it into a Eurorack module. So now the 3 dimensions are all simultaneously voltage controllable at frequencies up to the sample rate, all the way up to 20 kHz modulation on this filter.
Incredible.
Within it we have the, for those of you who are Morpheus fans, we have the Ultra Proteus set of all 288 different filters. Now translated into our new Morpheus modules space. The other really fun thing that we added is a number of the modules, for example, Cubase 4 here, the dot 4 means that we're only using 2 dimensions. We only have 4 defined filters in the cube. So what we've done is turned the transform dimension, which would be unused in this cube, into a distortion dimension.
Oh, interesting.
So as I play sounds into that, we've emulated that fascinating Morpheus distortion that people love so much. It's not exactly the same, but it really, in my ear, it's more attuned to what you want in the Eurorack environment. But you can now voltage control that distortion parameter as well.
Amazing.
And sweep it into these, really odd resonant modes where it's just going nuts, and then you can pull it back from the edge and back into it as you like.
It is so fascinating to see that the products that you're developing are not just Me Too stuff. Everything is different, everything is original, and everything really reminds me of the old EMU vibe. This is just wonderful.
Well, I mean, we're getting the band back together again, and my passion is to give musicians tools that are really fun and really creative.
Okay, tell us about the Assimilator, Dave.
So the Assimilator is our latest module. This one's just going into production right now. They should be available the beginning of March, and it looks like the first run's going to be sold out. So if you want to get one quickly, get your order in now. That's a shameless plug right there. I'm really excited about this. We've been working on this for a year. It's been a huge project, but it's an 8-channel sampler in Eurorack. You store your samples on the little memory card down here. It's a micro SD card. The thing has a ½ gig of memory inside of it. And it's a full-blown multi-channel sampler. I'm going to load the NAMM demo bank into it. It just loaded it off the card here. And I call this first of all because I like to begin the demo by saying, first of all, it's a sampler, and all you do is press the sample button, a little sample light goes on, and bingo, we've just sampled. Usually I do it with my voice when I do the demo, and you can now immediately play that on a channel over here and keep, or I usually choose to erase that particular sample. The whole point of Eurorack is control voltage modulation, so just a quick tour of this. When you take a sample, and let's get out of this world right here. So I've got something I can play back up here. We've got a ton of parameters we can control. You can, of course, control its pitch, and you control it from shifting up 6 octaves. It's got a huge range for a sampler, down to -20 or so octaves. Just crazy. You can also modulate that with exponential FM or linear FM. And linear FM lets you also do scrubbing. Everything's DC coupled, so you can take it down to 0 frequency, go into reverse frequency, so you can literally just program this knob to control linear FM and do scrubs on your samples, which is great fun. In addition to pitch, we've of course got level control, linear amplitude modulation, exponential amplitude modulation. You can control the pan, it's a stereo output, and the mix level, you can get your output 8 individual output channels or an 8-channel mix in stereo down here. Now then we start having fun. The mutate button lets you put a bit crusher on it, determine the number of bits from 32 down to 1, and it's a continuous bit crusher. It isn't jumping between those. It actually is dynamically varying the quantization level. This one I'm very proud of down here, the aliasing. The interpolator itself has a voltage control in it that will take it from this fabulous, can pitch shift up without aliasing 5 octaves, aliaser all the way down to a drop sample thing. Again, continuously voltage controlled.
I miss my old Insonic Mirage.
Yes.
Ah, the days of aliasing.
Yes, and this will emulate that just fine. And then you can reverse the sample. That's one of the other things that we've got on this guy. And then the thing is named after, the phase modulation. When you phase modulate a sample, it's a wonderful dynamic combination of the 2 samples. I'm amazed it hasn't been done before. For example, here when I set up this particular phase mod demo, let me get out of there. the sort of thing I'm doing here. I'm modulating a trumpet with a piano or a bassoon with a violin, and it's a fascinating mix of the sound of the two instruments. You also can do that with synth waveforms. You can phase modulate with an external waveform. Oh, and then we didn't even talk about, you also have loop controls within the thing, so you can loop the things, and you can voltage control the loop start, the loop end, the start point. You can voltage control jumping into a sample. And then, just in case that wasn't enough, we also have something called zones. In a traditional sampler, you have multi-sampling, where you'll play a different sample on the keyboard, a completely different sample as you walk up in pitch. Well, Eurorack, we aren't digital, we aren't MIDI, but nonetheless you want to be able to do it. So we allow you to take a control voltage in and control what we call the zone of the sample that will allow you to switch the sample on the key on or dynamically switch under voltage control between different samples. To dynamically switch, you really have to correlate the samples pretty well together, but it works remarkably well. We've got some wonderful demos on that. So that's a whirlwind tour of Assimilator. We're just going into beta right now. We've done a ton of work, as you can tell, on the software. We're really excited, and you'll be able to get them in about a month.
Now, I do an awful lot of work with post-production, so I've been a professional sound designer for most of my career. And one of the holy grails that we're always looking for is the ability to be able to grab samples and manipulate them expressively and quickly on the fly. And it looks to me like this might actually be something that you could interface with the digital audio workstation, be able to sample, you know, you're working on the sound of rocks, and you could throw the rocks right out of the workstation into the Assimilator, and then very quickly and very differently than you would be able to do with a MIDI-based system, be able to come up with different permutations and variations on those sounds.
Yeah, I'll go you one better. Get an Assimilator and a Morpheus, stick the two together, both stereo, and have some control forge magic to be dynamically filtering those things as you process them. You know, again, you're not going to find any plugins for your workstation that are going to do anything like Morpheus.
Right.
You know, yes, that would just be out of this world. You'd have so much fun with that and be able to do so many incredible things.
Oh, you've spent so much of my money. Thank you, Dave.
You bet. Well, I mean, you know, we're getting the band back together again, and my passion is to, you know, give musicians tools that are really fun and really creative. And, you know, that's what my whole life has been about, is creating, you know, just these off-the-wall ideas and signal processing and so on, turn it into something that is just friendly to the musician, that he, you know, gets an emotional attachment to. You know, I had my sort of semi-retirement when I stopped designing instruments for about 10 or 12 years, and that was as the industry was going through this transition where everything was becoming computer-based, and I just, you know, myself, I couldn't relate to a computer as a musical instrument. Certainly it's a tool, but these things are musical instruments where you can grab them, you know, you get this emotional relation. And as a designer, I have that same relationship with my modules.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Dave. Your work has certainly been an enormous influence on me. My first EMU device was an Emulator 2 Plus HD, which I basically learned all of my sampling and the tools of post-production on. Since then, I've worked with Emaxes, with Proteuses, with basically everything that you guys made all the way along. And so, as one very appreciative fanboy, I want to thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Wish you the best of luck with this line.
Okay.
Rossum Electro-Music. Can you tell us what the URL is before we sign off?
www.rossumelectro.com, just with a hyphen in between, I think, or maybe it's just one word. Or just look up Rossum. There aren't very many of us. Rossum Electro will get you, you know, right to us.
Thank you, Dave, and best of luck with the show.
Okay, bye-bye.